Welcome to the Summers Woodworking Show. It's Season 4, Episode 10. It's Take Duo. Charles Deering over at, what is the name of your place, Charles?
Woodenvisions.com.
Yeah, woodenvisions.com. He's going to be turning a live edge bowl. And we're going to start off with roll call. I'm going to start with you, Shannon. You want to tell people who you are and where they can find you?
Well, if they want to stalk the back fence, they can see me at the shop. But my name's Shannon Fargo. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram under Fat Guy in a Little Shop. And if you just use my name and YouTube, you can find the videos that I've put out so far.
Okay, sounds good. And you, Russ. He's on his iPad, guys. Give him a minute.
He's
Still
got,
muted.
like the Olympics, he's got the tape delay going.
There we go.
I said, actually, I couldn't hear you. You're really choppy, so on my end, but it could be because of the storms here. We've got a lot of storms around us, so my internet might be laggy. But anyway, I'm Russ Clarity. You can find me on Simply Wooden Creations, Simply Wooden Creations on Facebook, simplywoodencreations.com, Simply Wooden Creations on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, and all the social medias.
Alrighty. And next we have Chris.
Hey guys, Chris Ahern here at the Old Cranky Workshop. I do a little woodworking, anything from small pieces of beer cups and things like that, and wooden toys, and some small furniture. You find me on Facebook at the Old Cranky Workshop, on YouTube at Chris the Wheeler, on Instagram and Twitter at Chris Ahern. Someday I will get these all put together under one name. So if you don't find me there, check the local pub. I'm probably hanging out there trying to avoid my bar tab.
Alrighty, sounds good. And next we have Mr. Googly. Come on, Charles.
I am Charles Deering. On Facebook, I am the Charles Deering. On YouTube, I am Charles Deering Scroll. And if you go to woodenvisions.com and look in the link section, you'll see the links to all my other social media. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
Alrighty, well tonight you're gonna demonstrate our live edge bowl. What kind of wood are you gonna be using?
I had hoped to use walnut, but it was crappy sapwood, so I used live oak. One thing I want to stress is I have a habit of trying to teach ordinarily when I do videos, but I want everybody to know that I don't feel like I'm good enough at lathe work to teach it, so I'm just showing what I do. I am not saying this is the way to do it, okay? Just so everybody watching knows. Okay. Because when I was doing scrolling, it was second nature to try to help them teach, but I don't feel confident enough on the lathe. But I guess before I get going, I can show you different examples of live edge. It's either live edge or natural edge. This is walnut. Every now and then it turns out good, but this was a purchased bulb length, or I purchased log, so that's why it doesn't look crappy. That sounded arrogant. Anyway, natural edge or live edge refers to when the bark's on it, or if it's from a log like this one. This one's also live oak, and I took the bark off this one because most of it was off anyway. This is the one you will see in the video.
So how do you preserve that edge?
I use depth spray lacquer or any kind of spray lacquer, but if the wood's dead anyways, it should stay there. It depends on how crappy the wood is. Now, somebody could have a more technical answer, but usually the crappier the wood is, the less chance of the bark staying on, which sometimes you find out the hard way, and it sucks if you want to keep that bark on there. Because
Okay.
it doesn't always stay, which you see why I was covering it with my hands. Yeah. All right, so the premise I'm going to show, I guess I should screen share. I'm going to show a couple pictures to sort of explain how, oh, sorry, that's my next scroll saw header. Sam Elliott. Okay, my computer's going slow. This is a very, very detailed drawing. This is you looking at the end of a log. You want to, from my understanding, you want to avoid the pith because that's where the cracks tend to come out of. So you want to cut on either side of it. If you want to make a live edge bowl, this is going to be a very, very crappy.
So, Charles, explain what the pith is.
The pith is the very center of the log. Well, I say the very center, but it doesn't always go right down the center. But yeah, if you're looking at the end of a log, let's pretend that you cut
where
off.
the rings start to form.
Yeah, where the where the rings are coming out. I wanted to draw it, but it started to look like something pornographic, so I stopped and just. Well, how about I? Yeah.
We didn't even get that far in the show, and it's already started.
I'll show you in person. That is the pith on a log. It's the very center point. Even though I cut it in half, I used the other half that was above this pith to make a bowl.
So it's right between all them cracks.
Yeah, and cracks don't always go all the way through. So a lot of times, if you have a log, you can cut off the ends of it and take off about an inch to be safe. Not every log is going to have a crack all the way through. But if you cut through the log and you see cracks going down the length of it, you're probably going to want to avoid it. And again, I'm not a professional at this. I've just done what I think is done. So let me go back to screen sharing. So hopefully that explained that.
I would just like to say one thing. Sometimes there's hidden cracks.
Yeah. And hello. Another thing you run into is sometimes it's not quite dead, or it is dead and it's got bugs inside of it, and that's another thing you don't always see until you until you've cut through it. Because I've cut through many a log where there was half of a grub worm in there, or 50,000 ants, and they'll let you know that they're there. But anyways, that's the pith. You want to avoid that. And now I know this is common sense that there's bark on a log, but the reason why I was explaining it is as a visual. I'm just going to use a black line. This is you'll see some of this in the video, but basically what this is not perfect drawing, but this is basically what you're doing is you're making a live edge bowl like that. That's why the chop is shaped so funny. It'll be curved.
Okay, Charles. Jim over here, he wants to know. So then you use the small part or the large part after you divide it?
You use the part that doesn't have the pith in it. That's why the bigger the log you have, the bigger bowl you can make.
Okay.
In other words, like as you can see in this very very detailed drawing, I avoided the pith. So we cut above the pith, and so there's no pith that'll start cracking. But if you would use this side, now you never mind. It won't make any sense. But
so if you was to use that other piece, you just cut out the pith.
Yeah, you could just cut it across here. Wow, that was almost a straight line till right when I said that. You would just cut across there. You just want to avoid the pith. And there's some, if it's completely dead, not all piths will crack. But don't quote me on that. I just don't. I think once it's completely dead and dried out, I don't know if it'll continue to crack. But I don't know that enough to tell you that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Charles, can you do another bowl on the bottom part of that? So you can, that piece you use that picture. You get two bowls.
Yeah, you can get two bowls or very small ones. Cause you can, as long as you're on either side of that pith, you can use any part of that wood.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Technically you could use another one. And matter of fact,
two smaller ones.
Yeah, I've probably done that. Now I wish I had some bigger logs so I could make bigger bowls, but most of them tend to be about the size that fit in my hand.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Okay, the other picture I'm going to wait to show you because it corresponds with the video. And the video is coming up right now. If you are ready for me, Mr. Summers.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You call me Summers.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the first one. This is me cutting it on the bandsaw. You see the cracks on the end, and then you see the cracks don't go all the way through. But I'm mainly talking, so not completely bored. There are some cracks, but they're not right there at the pith. Do you see how that one pith was in the middle, and on that one, well, that one it wasn't completely on the middle. That's what I meant by it doesn't always run right directly down the center. And that's, if you see me looking at it or going up and down, it's because I'm trying to remember where the pith was. And I want to say that's a half-inch blade. I do not recall.
It looks like it.
And
You're
for
just freehand cutting that. You weren't marking or measuring anything.
yeah, I'm just freehanding it.
Okay.
I guess you could if you wanted to, but I don't know that it's that precise.
I'm a big fan of freehand. Don't worry about it.
Now, until I started doing live oak bowls, I did not know it had that dark streak down the middle. At least not some of them. And that's me approving of it. Now you want to center this. You measure the length and the width of that blank, and this is for you putting the spur center, spur drive. I can't remember what the hell it's called. Spur drive or spur center, whatever. This is where you're going to be putting that in. You'll see me do that with a rubber mallet. It could be a regular hammer if you so choose. You don't want to go all the way through it. You're just getting it enough. I went past the bark and about the depth of the Forstner bit into the thing, just to put the spur drive in.
Oh, okay.
And that's the side that goes into the headstock. And for those that don't do lathe work, the headstock is the part that has the motor and all the turning on. Now, a lot of people think, well, how do you get the bark opening? You'll see. Now, it's okay. I'm going to pause it so I don't go past myself. This is me doing the safety check. Have your face shield. So that's the headstock over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. It's the headstock, and so that thing we just hammered in is inserted inside of this area right here. That's the tailstock. And especially when you're...
They can see your mouse. They can see your mouse.
Okay. Now you see me pointing at the face shield. That's another thing about doing these live edge bowls is that unfortunately, you don't always know if that bark's going to go flying. So you should always wear a face shield anyways, but that's one of the biggest reasons on live edge bowls. Whoops.
Yeah, get some loose bark thrown at you.
Yeah, sure. And I only use Carbide tools. So I'm not an expert on them, but I should also mention that my sponsor is Tommy G Workshop. Except for the one I was just holding, I bought that from Easy Wood Tools, and then I found Tommy G. TommyGWorkshop.com is where you can get Carbide tools, either full size, mid size, or mini. I always start out.
What you're using is a rougher, aren't you?
Well, yeah. I just call it a square tip, so I've never really followed what they're called.
It's the rougher.
All right. Yeah, the rougher and the round cutters are the only ones I generally use unless I'm looking for fine detail. And when I'm shaping the tenon, I'll use a triangle, also from Tommy G.
Okay.
But I already had this orange-handled one from Easy Wood before Tommy started making his, or before I found out about it. And that's, again, I don't know if this is how you're supposed to do it, but this is how I do it. And I did not realize the floor was going to vibrate, so it's going to be wavy like this. And it's probably best just to let y'all watch, but okay. Do you see how, even though it's spinning, you can see through it?
Mm-hmm.
This is also obviously for viewers' sake. That's called, I believe people refer to it as ghost cutting or ghost. You always got to take in mind how far that stuff sticks out. You don't only want to stick it in where you can't see through it, because if you go through there like nothing's there, then it's gonna chunk you all over the place. But
it's gonna surprise you.
Yeah. 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 So if you ever hear the term ghost cutting, that's what they're referring to, is putting the tool anywhere in that area that you can somewhat see through. And the reason why you can see through it is because it's not a block you're cutting through. Now, I tend to use the corner when I'm using the rougher. I start out with that and then go to the round once I've got the shape I want. And any places I did go too deep and it stopped the lathe because Harbor Freights are not known for their high torque. That got edited out, so I look kind of perfect here. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But some people say go uphill, not downhill, or vice versa. I mean, and but I just do what feels comfortable at the time. Trial and error, but don't take that as law. This is how I do it. I tend to go from the pit tailstock up to the headstock when I'm doing these. And
Yeah, and normally you wouldn't want to put your tool out that far.
Well, agreed, 100%. But with carbide tools, I think it's a little bit different than traditional lathe tools. But yeah, that right there is probably too far. But I know some carbide tools have to have a hangover, like the hook tool for doing hollowing out. Right there, I'm just trying to get a flat bottom on there before I put the tenon on. But yeah, I think the reason I started out with the tool rest out that far was because I had a bigger piece of wood that didn't work out, and I forgot to move it in. But
it's I've done that a few times.
yeah, okay, I'm starting the tenon right here, and I don't show you every step of that because it's just more of the same.
Okay.
And you'll notice I'm speeding it up. I had on a Harbor Freight lathe, I had it about 3 or 4 on speed. Now it's up to about probably 8. And that's a little ahead.
Well, I don't know, but it sure looks good, like a good-looking lathe to me.
By God, the guy that just said that is the fella. The fella that said that is the one that gave me that lathe. Thank God. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have started it for quite a while. Now you can make the lathe. Well, yeah. I mean, not the lathe, the tenon. This is me making sure outside the tenon is flat because I want the bowl to have a flat bottom. And that some people might consider that a huge tenon, but better safe than sorry, because I've had tenons that just fall apart because they're too small or got punky wood in there. And again, I'm sorry for the vibration. I did not know it would affect the camera. Which
It looks pretty good on the video.
Cool. Now I'm starting. Now there again, even though that piece of wood looked relatively large, you're trying to get it round, so you don't get to use that whole length or whole width. You only get to use like a circle work. Again, if there's any lathe experts out there, you're welcome to critique my work. I don't claim to. I'm used to teaching when I do videos. That's why I haven't done YouTube videos in so long. But I should just show what I do, like I'm doing right now for the show, and start producing videos again.
No, don't sweat it, Charles. That's the key to these shows. None of us are experts.
I hear you. Somebody had a question?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, sure.
When I had the lathe, the only thing that I made off of it was 2 little round chair spindles. As far as making that bottom of that bowl flat, like you were saying, I don't know if I could do it with the tool that you're using, because to me, like a parting tool or something like that with me, because I couldn't tell if it was flat or not using the tool that you got.
Well, if you'll go back, where am I at here? You see how that's a square tube? That's how you know it's flat, because it'll ride the bottom of that square tube.
Okay.
And I just ordered a tool rest from a guy that's custom made. It's going to be wide and flat, and it'll help those ride even more. The hook tool I got from Easy Wood as well, because I don't know currently if Tommy G makes the curved tools yet. But it has a very flat. It's like half the thickness of this, and but yeah, all of them have flat unless they're. I don't think he does any of them that are round tubing. You'd have to check with him on that, but
yeah.
Okay, now, ow, sorry.
Their hollowing tools are round.
Hey, Charles.
Yes, sir.
At one of the woodworking shows, I watched a guy turning some bowls, both live edge and the other, and he was using the easy wood tools. And
Oh,
I
really?
noticed, yeah, and I noticed that he was using the finisher to do everything. I'm talking about he don't even use the roughing tool to do the outside, just like you used. He uses the finishing tool to do that. And I had a moment. I actually caught him off of this when he was through, and caught him and asked him. I was like, "Why are you using the finishing tool and not the rough or anything?" He said, "Well, number one, they they're all carbide, so they cut just one as good as the other, and the
Yep.
finishing tool is round, and you're making a round bowl, so therefore, when you come in and cut the sides, it makes it a lot smoother and natural to use the finishing tool." So just
Yeah.
throw that. I've
I,
tried it myself on a few bowls, and it worked fantastic. So I don't even use my roughing tool anymore. I use the finishing tool for hollowing out the inside, the outside, everything.
well, I use the rougher only because, for me anyway, it takes out more material to begin with because I know it's not starting out round, but you'll see I turn to a circle one, uh,
Yeah.
a
Well, he
round
does
one.
it all totally, and I did. Now I do it too.
And it's the same with a traditional lathe tool. Some people will do all their work with a skew chisel, and I don't
Yeah.
know enough about traditional. That
No, 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 no,
Not
no.
me.
I have to correct you on
no,
that.
no, I don't mean a skew chisel and everything. I mean some people will use a skew chisel, where other people would use another tool. A lot of people have a favorite tool that they go to wherever they can use it. Uh,
Right.
like spindle or bowl gouge. Bowl gouge, unless I'm mistaken, is used for mainly not hogging out the material. But
For a good finish, you
I
want to
just thought
use
it
a
was
skew.
interesting. I just thought it was interesting that he was using the finish tool for everything, and I was like, wow. So, and you're right. A lot there's some people that get used to using another tool or whatever, and that's all they use.
yeah, I started out with carbide tools, so I've fallen in love with them because I have better control with those. Because when you use traditional lathe tools, you got to have it at a certain angle, ride the bevel, all that other fancy stuff, and I don't. I'm more comfortable with things I know or am comfortable with. So I'm not saying an expert with carbide tools. I'm just saying that's how I do it. Again, I start out with the rougher, and then I go to the round. Now, this is the headstock we were looking at. Now we're looking at the other side where the bark is, and that's the tailstock. And you'll see me looking at that crack going, dag blabbit. My thumb jumping up and down was my way of letting you know I was making note of the crack and saying, holy poop, there's another crack.
Is
So
that
did
what you
you
actually
fill it?
did?
No, I didn't. I chose to make it a thick walled bowl. And I knew when I was filming, if this blows up, at least it's on film. Some people would stop there if they want a pristine bowl. I didn't have the means to fill it. Now, say that's the round cutter. And
Yeah,
that's
like
what
I said,
that's what you were talking about, how that guy says you can get a better smooth thing with it. That's why I go to that next.
that's
Yeah,
the finish.
that's your finisher.
Okay,
Yeah.
'cause I've seen those. I just didn't know what they were.
Well, that's what I use them for. I'm not enough of a lathe expert to tell you their every purpose. But I feel like I have better control with this than I do the square one. But for what it's worth, when I do pins, I use only the square tip.
Yeah, the square one, which is your rougher. You usually get that down to where it's round,
Yeah,
and then you use your finisher, which is the round one, and then the triangular one, that's your detailer.
Oh, I
yeah.
haven't seen the triangle one.
But as far as pins go, all I use is the square one because it's the only one I had when I started doing pins, so I got used to just doing it with that. Now, there again, I was talking about uphill and downhill. Some people will tell you there's only one way to do it. I'm doing it both ways. I'm not saying that's the correct way. I'm going.
Actually, Charles has got the triangular one.
Yes, I do.
I got the diamond one.
I have both.
You
I
got both of those?
Yeah, I almost never use the diamond one unless I'm trying for very small beads, whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
I use that for detail work, and I barely ever do detail work, which is funny because in scroll work, that's all I do is detail. But anyway, All of these carbide things, some people will tell you every carbide tool is a form of a scraper. So, take that at face value or as fact, because they are all beveled on the bottom, and
Yeah,
you're
it
using the
is
edge
like
of,
a scraper.
yeah, because you're using the edge of every one of them. And with the round one, I have more control than I do with the square one when it comes to the smooth.
Which the carbide basically scrapes, and with traditional tools, you actually slice.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, for those that don't know, this is called a live center. It's a 60 degree, I believe, on the tailstock. And every now and then, and I probably don't need to tell anybody that knows about lathe turning, but every now and then this little lock here, this whole setup will loosen a little bit. Every now and then you got to make sure that's snugged up against there or to get off balance. Sometimes it likes to vibrate itself loose.
Yeah, especially on the Harbor Freight.
Yeah, and you can barely see that tenon sticking out right there. And at some point you'll see me with the triangle tool. This is me checking the texture and those cracks. The cracks are still holding up. I'm still not thrilled about it, but
Jim wanted to know what kind of wood it was, and I told him oak. Is that right?
live oak more specifically.
Okay, live oak.
Now see, the walnut and live oak that I have is from my parents' front yard. They had a huge tree, two huge trees that were being cut down. I had never seen live oak, so I thought it was going to be kind of boring until I saw that dark center, and now I love it. But it's not my favorite wood, but it's one I have most access to. Yeah, it is live oak. At some point, this might be, yeah, see, there's the triangle tool. I'll use that because when you're doing the tenon, I wish I had the camera facing the tenon, but I should probably, well,
You want to do your dovetail?
yeah, you dovetail. I was going to try to draw that right quick to show people.
That would
But,
look to me more like a parting tool from the traditional set of tools.
well, in a sense, yes, but it's only skinny at the tip. But as you go back, if you were parting, you'd have a big old wide gap.
Yeah.
But just remember the shape of that, and let me go real quick to Paint Shop Pro, and
Okay.
I'll and this is only to explain to people that are visual like I am. Okay, the bottom of a bowl. Okay, again, I'm going to do a real sloppy drawing. This is the side view of a bowl. This is why I have the triangle tool. You don't want, that's not a good example, but
That's pretty good.
okay, you don't want, unless you have the jaws to do it, you don't want just a straight edge. You want to,
Yeah, you don't want a straight tenon. You want a dovetail.
yeah, this is why it's called a dovetail, because, I guess it looks like a dovetail. You do not want a straight tenon because the chuck is designed to grip kind of like that.
Kind of, yeah, lock in on that.
So that's where the tenon is.
Okay.
And this, I'm just kind of a visual person, is why I'm showing everybody this. Anyway, that's explaining why there's that tenon is being cut. I meant to do that on video, but I didn't.
Okay.
Okay.
Good visual.
Thank you. So that's the tenon back there, and what you see with that triangle is what I'm about to do with that. And that's almost the only time I use that triangle, unless I'm doing bigger beads and coves and stuff. Actually, coves I tend to use around it.
I kind of like what I'm seeing, Charles. You mind if I get that machine back?
Well, on a serious note, I think the bearings are going out on it because it clicks when I'm turning it. This is
After he wears it out, he'll give it to you, Russ.
Yeah, I ain't even halfway for a dough one, no.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, what I'm doing right here is sanding. Now, because I'm explaining that I'm sanding, you won't see me go through all the grits. I started out with, God, what is it, 150? And I go all the way down to whatever the sandpaper is. I don't remember. I have one of those little kits that has little strips in it. Goes down to 320. One below, it goes down to 220, I believe. Let's start out with 150. No, I've got that backwards. Anyways, I start out with that and go through all the grids in one of your little sanding packs, but I don't show you every grid, so it's going to suddenly, you'll see it turned around. But another thing is it's only going to be sandable till you get to where that bark dips down, so it'll start vibrating like crap, so you don't want to be pressing real hard. And it's very hard to sand that where, dang it, I don't know how to explain it.
Some turners only sand down to 220.
Yeah, now you see how that dips down right there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're able to sand up to there while it's spinning, but anything from like here up, you got to sand while it's stopped if you want it consistently smooth, because of that air right there. That would be where the ghost is. It'll vibrate the crap out of your hand and could hurt you.
And most turners use like a sponge sander block.
Yeah, and I don't have one of those. I really wish I do. I need a set of the Velcro and sponge hook and loop, whatever you call it, sanders. I don't have any. I can't afford any, but because of that bark in that open area, I'm getting a lot of air from somebody.
What if a fella had a long strip of wood with some sandpaper or something glued to it? Does anyone know if that's possible? Or if that's a bad idea?
I think that's pretty much a bad idea. Because if it catches, I mean, if you got like a flapper sander or a sponge, if that gets caught, it's just going to yank it out of your hand and not make a big deal out of it. Where with the stick, it would take it and yank it all over the place.
But where would it? And I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know. So if anybody follows my advice, they deserve it. But if you've got, a 6-inch bowl and an 18-inch long piece of plywood or something that you can hold out well past the bowl, what would it catch on?
Well, if we're talking about doing the sides,
same thing.
If we're talking about the sides, it'll catch when it gets to this open area, because it's sanding here and not here. Because
you don't push down with the strength of 65 men. You just almost let it ride on top of it.
Yeah, but even riding, that's why I was talking about the sandpaper vibrating, because it's going through that open. It's going through a surface here and no surface here, so it'd be almost like, best example I can think of is going into a propeller, not as direct as a propeller.
Yeah, it's like going into a propeller.
You don't want to have that Indiana Jones moment, where you're the Nazi fighting Indy at the bomber.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I might get bored one day and try something and see. You never know.
Film that, because
Film it.
What not? No.
Film it.
But because we don't have this solid wood going all the way around.
I guess in my head, the way I'm seeing it is I'm not pushing down hard enough that in that moment of transition between wood and no wood.
You could do it, just be careful.
It's the same thing. People take their lathe tool and lay it up on top of the component while it's spinning to see if it's rounded yet or not. And it vibrates on top.
Not where it's open like that.
Well, no, but it's okay.
Now, if it was like a round bowl, or if it was cylinder-like, then yes.
I see Shannon's point. I wouldn't do it because of the danger, but Shannon's point is if you hold it just there, like a hair.
Right at your ghost line should be fine. But
but it's not going to be consistent because of the vibration. Unless you're a robot that can freeze completely, it's not really going to work that easily. But now, there again, I'm not a professional lathe turner, much less anything else. But I tend to sand these parts by hands or just let it vibrate while I'm sanding it.
No, I know what Shannon's saying. I've done it with a couple times with Christmas ornaments, but 4 open sides. I need to sand the whole unit.
Yeah.
I'll use a long stick with a piece of sandpaper around it and just lightly touched it.
Yeah.
Touch the wood. So never had this of it getting caught or jumping back at me.
Now I do.
Yeah, I guess as long as the tip is going past the wood.
That's what I was saying. You need,
But-
if you had a 6-inch bowl, you'd want an 18-inch long piece of wood, just so you knew your hands were well out of the way of what was spinning.
Exactly, yeah.
Well,
'Cause
like
then there shouldn't be anything to dip in there, like with a tool.
Right,
You
right.
catch it, and then you got breakaway.
Saying now.
If that were longer, I don't know.
I personally wouldn't do it, but you saw that when I was saying
Well, I've done it with straps of sandpaper.
yeah, that's what I was
Take
saying
the
here.
straps of sandpaper to where you got like a
Same
bolt
theory.
to it,
Now
and then just write it underneath it. I never do it over above, but I always do the sanding from below.
Yeah,
You
you'll see
know,
right.
and as long as you got it, underneath, it should be fine.
You see right here, I'm starting to sand where there's air, so you can't see the sandpaper, but it's flapping when I get past that bottom rounded part. It's vibrating right now. I'm not pushing very hard when I get to that open area. But that's the only way. I mean, yes, I do try to sand the whole thing, but if it's noticeably different from because you're only getting a consistent sand from here when you're holding pressure down. From here up, it's gonna be not as consistent unless you're brave. But anyway, this is me checking it out, still noticing the cracks, and then I think right about there I'm determining that I'm just going to make thick walls on it, because that crack goes all the way through. I didn't notice that. Now this is where that spur center was, and we've turned it around and put that tenon inside the chuck now. And I am a little closer with this. Tool rest.
How close were you?
0.233. I'm kidding. No, I probably could have been closer, but there again, I've never filmed myself doing lathe work before, so you saw my head come into there. I had to cut out a big hunk of this video because I got between the camera and the bolt, but I start out again with the square to get an idea where the edge is going to be. And I think unless I edited it out because of my head, you'll see that I turned it off to see how thick the walls are going to be and if it's avoiding that crack. And I had also forgotten to, I'll jump ahead later, but I forgot to drill the depth that I wanted it to go with it. I use a spade bit. I think it's called a spade bit. I have no idea.
Is it a flat bit?
It's flat and shaped like the tail end of an arrow with a point on it.
Yeah,
I think
that's a spade or a paddle, either one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you can't really tell all of those shavings are coming off. When I first started, I'm barely touching it because I don't want all the bark to fly off, and I don't want to be jolted out of my shoes. But ordinarily, I will drill the depth of that hole previously, but I forgot to do that on this one. That's just from where I use the Forstner bit to put in the spur drive. And when you look later and it looks like more has been dug out, it's because that's where my head got in the way. Matter of fact, I think just for comedic value, I think I did slow motion when you start to see my head get in the way. And using a rougher, I might still be digging out too much. Better safe than sorry, but I think I'm getting ready to get my head in the way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind, I'll explain in a second. You see that tape on there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so I know how deep the tool is into the thing, and I'll show you a picture here shortly of how you determine where to put that tape.
Just like you do on a drill bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in case I forget to show you, I'll go ahead and show you now. That is me determining I want the bottom of the bowl to be right about here. So you're eyeballing it and you're putting the tape right at the top edge. So that's how I know if I'm looking overhead at it, I'll know when to stop pushing towards the bottom.
So you're doing about 1/2 inch there?
Probably a little less than that. I suck at eyeballing distances or lengths, but I think that's that's why the tape is on there. Is it's showing me when to stop going in. Okay, where was I?
That's a good piece of info. I've blown out the bottom of 2 so far.
Yeah, I'm gonna sneak in Charles's shop and change all the pieces of tape.
Well, they're not permanent because different bowls are different depths.
Well, dang it, man.
Oh, he'll do it while you're working. He'll distract you and
Yeah.
change the tape.
Yeah, you can't see it right now, but on the other side is where that crack is. But that crack is somewhere in here on the other side, so that's why it's so thick over there. But this is about the thickness I'm using, and this is where I remembered to use that spade bit to do the depth I wanted, so that even though the majority of the drilling is right here, you still got that point, and that point is what I'm relying on. When that little bitty hole goes away, that's when I know I'm at the depth I want to be.
Okay.
And I believe I'm about to start using the round tip here, and this is when my head gets in the way. So when it goes to slow motion, that's why. No, I'm still using the square, so forget I said that. It's probably because I'm hogging out more material. I hog it out with the...
Whose video is this?
Russ?
I had to stop and think, what is he talking about? Oh, wait.
Well, you don't remember what you used.
Well, because
it was a joke.
I know. I thought I was to the point of the video. See right there, my head got in the way, and suddenly there's more material gone. Because I don't know how much I had. See how I go in slow motion? That's my head starting to get in the way. I had to edit it out. And that's what makes part of this video really suck. And you want to clear out that crap there because it messes with you.
Well, that takes you out of the Oscar nomination.
I'm surprised that crack hold up.
I'm not terribly surprised because that's why I wanted it to be so thick. The walls are relatively thick because they're bowed out a little bit, so they don't look very thick right there. But the crack is on this side, on one of these sides like this. So I think I'm about to start using the round, unless no. Yeah, this is me using the round. It's my video, I swear. But this just makes clearing out the inside much easier, and unfortunately my head got in the way again, so you're not going to get to see a whole lot of this. Right there is when my head starts to get in the way, and dag blabbit, Charlie had to edit out all that part, and now I'm clearing out the crap, or the chips. And
Hey, Charles.
Yes, sir.
We got a question in the chat from Donna Presley. She wants to know, so when I get around doing a bowl, what speed should I start out to keep from hurting myself? LOL.
I am not a good person to ask that, but I start out with about 3 or 4 on a Harbor Freight, which is relatively low speed. Because when you first start out, unless it's perfectly balanced, it's going to vibrate a lot anyway.
Yeah, it's going to wobble.
Yeah, so mid to low speed, I would say, but don't quote me on that. I can't accurately answer that and be confident in my answer. I just say low speed, 3 or 4 on 3 or 4 out of 10. So yeah, like you saw on the outside, that's basically what I'm doing on the inside. I just backed up a little bit because I interrupted myself. Now, yes, that's a lot of overhang, but take in mind you got the edge right here that's up next to the thing.
Right.
That's what I love about the Libo, because that dark middle right there. Unfortunately, you didn't see much of me doing the hollowing out with the round tool because of my skull getting in the way.
Well, you got to dip your head down in there to see what you're doing, so...
Yeah, and I'm so used to doing that, I forgot about the camera, but there's that crack I was wondering about. There's one there. I dang near got it, but so far it's held up, and my mom stole it from me.
I've had a few that I didn't realize were there until after I started turning, and figured once I saw them, they're going to blow out, and it...
Yeah, you just got to the point where it's starting to show through.
Yeah, now ideally I would have gone a little thinner with the walls, but because of that I didn't. This is a little bug hole. I just kept it for character, or well, the bug did. But I've just recently started using. Now you can use boiled linseed oil and shellac or lacquer. I can't remember what it is. It's called Shine Juice. Braxton Worthland has a video on it. But we were
Charles,
talking.
how big is this bowl?
Oh God, I don't remember.
About maybe 6 inches deep.
Oh, deep? No. Maybe 2 or 3 inches deep. Maybe about 4 to 6 inches across. I don't remember. I suck
Four
at.
to 6 inches across. Okay.
Yeah.
So the log was only probably about 12 inches in diameter.
Yeah, the log wasn't very big at all because you're only getting
I
used
was
to
just
half
trying
the
to
log.
get an idea of the size. Yeah. Okay. So about 12 inches, so you can get a 4 to 6 inch bowl off of each side.
Yeah. Did you see that piece of wood I held up earlier where I was showing you the pith in person? It was half of that. So yeah, it wasn't very big. I'll show it again when I get back on camera. I just recently. Now, some things I will use that boiled linseed oil and the shellac finish just to get a general finish on there, but once that dries, I'll start using spray lacquer and just, sand between coats, but not aggressively, just to get the texture off. But here, I didn't even use the boiled linseed oil. Now, the formula for that shine juice, me and Braxton since then have determined you really don't even need the lacquer thinner. You can just use boiled linseed oil and shellac, but I have better results only doing one coat. But right here, I recently started using a Lazy Susan thing from Walmart, and this is, I believe Chris commented on one of my videos, is that wet or just a really shiny finish? And I said both, because I took a picture right after I put that's my lamp up above me that's reflecting the bottom. That's not a pool of finish. But you were asking how to finish that. That's how I do it.
Okay, now on the bottom of that bowl, how did you finish that off?
I didn't.
You weren't supposed to ask that question.
I guess I asked the wrong question. He left.
No.
Oh.
Charles, where'd you go?
I mean, he left right immediately when you asked that question.
I think you took that personal or something.
Yeah,
I didn't. Come on.
Brian, you never asked the great and powerful Oz what goes on behind the curtain.
Pay no attention.
Wow, you must have crashed.
I know.
You had weather going on.
Bad.
Here's Charles.
I actually out of one too many things. So it was about half of this log versus the size of that bowl. But taking in mind, you can only do a round thing out of here, doing a traditional bowl. So that unfortunately, no matter how pretty the wood is, you only get to use a round piece. Did I miss any?
Yeah,
an answer or?
Oh yeah,
they were all making smart ass comments about
that doesn't.
Yeah, people in the chat are calling me Bad Brian for asking a question.
Yeah, they were slamming you left and right, buddy.
Everybody, Charles, I wasn't.
Don't worry, Charles, I had your back the whole time.
Rock and roll, but there again, I am not saying this is the way to do it. It's how I do it. Now, traditional people that have been lathe turning for years might be saying, "Dude, you got lucky," but I that's how I do it. I just.
So one quick question, Charles, and don't disappear, okay? How would you finish the bottom?
Well, some people would tell you, "Oh, that's what we were talking about when I got cut off." Well, you cut the tenon off for one, and one way to do that is to have I think they call it and this is going from memory of watching videos. I haven't done it yet, besides using a bandsaw to cut off the tenon or a belt sander. You could use a waste block put inside your chuck, somewhat shaped to the shape of the inside of the bowl, and or a big old piece of foam.
Yeah, like a jam chuck.
Yeah, I've heard of a jam chuck, but never seen one. But yes, that's one way to cut off the tenon. But a lot of mine, I still have the tenon because this one is ready. But because I'm not confident in my ability to take off the tenons yet, is why that was me using. Yeah.
Yeah, but you also call the tenon part of the design. You can get away with that too.
Now, some people in my family, anyways, they might just be being polite, but they said it kind of looks like it goes with it as a foot. But and you could on some of them, but generally, it's traditionally, this one is the one I just did the other day, and I had a flat bottom on it intentionally, but it still got the tenon on there. But yeah, I believe Braxton, there, I'm trying to give credit where credit is due, where I was told. Braxton's the one that told me about the waste block with the foam on it. But I'm not confident enough in my abilities to control everything, and I don't want it flying off because I'm just now still healing.
If you ain't got all those kind of things and you want to get it done, you think you could do it on a bandsaw if you did like a V holder?
I've done a few on the bandsaw if I'm confident, but certain bandsaw blades, depending on the hook,
It'll grab it. That's why I say if you got like a V, like a spline jig, you set it in there and you hold it down and clamp.
Oh, I don't have a spline jig, and my building abilities without a plan to go by sucks. But yeah.
What about a Japanese handsaw? Just nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, flush trim saw. Yeah.
Flush trim saw. Now there are ways to do it on the lathe. I have not done it, so my confidence in doing it is not there. That's why I have not turned them off. To answer the public's questions, it's usually taken.
I just wanted people to get the idea how to finish it.
Yeah, I don't. What's the term for an inverted tenon where it goes in instead of out? I've been doing that recently, and I don't.
Oh yeah, the inverted tenon. Yeah, those are nice.
What is that called? Yeah, I can't remember what that term is called. Spigot? I don't know. But yeah.
A mortise? Like a mortise?
Yeah, but there's a specific term for it.
I don't know the term for it either.
Yeah,
but I'd say an inverted tenon.
Yeah, that's what I call it, but I know there's a name for it. I just can't remember. Maybe somebody in the chat. Of course,
JP says no. I ain't gonna say what you said, JP.
Dang it, I can't remember the term for it, but here lately, because of having that foot left over, if the piece is big enough, I try to do an inverted tenon, but I know that's not what it's called. And there again,
I ain't gonna say what Donald said either.
Yeah, with Donald, yeah. Sorry you're not here, Donald. Hopefully you get your computer up and going, or fixed, or.
All you can do, what I do, is cheat and hold it down over the belt sander and just grind away.
I tried to do that too, but I couldn't get it to consistently hold down. That's why that foot is so small. I'm afraid of flattening one side. Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I know it's cheating, but I've had very good luck. I can eyeball it very well, and
yeah.
I've knocked off a lot of tenons and edges that way. So.
Now I've gotten a few I was able to get off of the bandsaw, but most of the blades I have a hook tooth, and they tend to catch it, and I'm scared to death of screwing up a bowl. It's funny because I get more mad at screwing up the bowl than I do with injuries. But
why? Because you're so close to done.
Yeah, the
last thing you do, you trash it.
Yeah, the one piece that injured me was only because the tenon was kind of like this. But it wasn't bark. It was just sappy, crappy wood, and it crumbled when it was tightened inside the thing. I didn't know that until it flew off and it skidded across my hand. And my uncle asked, "Did you cuss?" I said, I cussed, but I was cussed because the bowl flew across the shop, not because I was bleeding everywhere.
You can more upset because of the loss of work, not the injury.
Yeah, but there again, I am not teaching. I'm showing how I do it. So there are videos out there that more experienced lathe turners can probably show you better than I could. But I hope y'all enjoyed my example of how it's done.
Yeah, it's pretty good, Charles. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Very good, very good.
But you can even do. Dang it. My very first live edge bowl. Fine, if you don't mind putting the camera on me right quick, unless me talking does it. This is from a peach tree. That's my very first live edge bowl.
Oh, neat.
Oh, that's cute.
It's so cute.
That's a little teacup.
It's even got a little bitty.
Yeah, it looks just like you.
And it's got a little bitty tenon on it. A little bitty tenon that I didn't cut off.
I think that's what. Never mind.
This is an example of.
We're still live. Hold on.
We're still alive. This is an example of bug damage in a peach tree still being turned. And look, it has a tenon on it. But yeah. And
Hey Charles, you can turn that one into a yarn ball. A friend of mine wants to make her a bowl
yeah, with
that
the
has a slice like down the side. She can put a yarn ball in it, and the yarn
Yeah.
just comes out the side.
yeah, I told y'all about the time that a piece flew out and knocked the plastic out of my face shield. That was this piece.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
I was trying to hollow it out, and I had just gotten that curved tool that goes inside that little bitty hole. Don't go there. And it caught the edge, and boom, and that went flying right at me. Thank God for face shields. But otherwise, I love the shape of it. But I think it has kind of a modern look, so that's why I kept it.
Yeah, I like
Oh,
it.
that's
It
neat.
adds
That's
a
very
little
neat.
character to it.
Yeah, that wood is hackberry for anybody that, or I think it, yeah, spalted hackberry.
You know, I cut down a whole damn hackberry tree in my yard when I put my home where it is. And I was so happy to get that tree gone.
Yeah,
I hated that thing.
This is prettier hackberry, and the main reason I'm holding this up is that is what I was talking about, an inverted tenon. That is not the name of it. I just can't think of the name of it. But that's when you put the chuck inside of that and expand the jaws instead of contracting. So that's what I prefer to do these days because of all those feet left on the thing.
Now, do you use the reverse dovetail on that, or is that just a smooth edge?
Yeah, it's a reverse dovetail. I'm the same thing I do when I'm doing the tenon here on the foot. I'm doing outwards on that one. This is the only lidded thing I've ever done. But it's not how you're supposed to do a lid. It's supposed to rest on top of the little bitty hole, but I just made it drop part way in.
That's neat, though.
That's an example of using the round cutter for detail, if you want to call it that. But yeah, that's.
What kind of wood was that, Charles?
That was walnut, I believe.
It's like walnut.
I have to stop playing with different woods. I keep playing with pine.
Well, you've seen a lot of my stuff on Facebook has been walnut because to me that's prettier than live oak, and live oak and walnut is all I really have access to right now.
Yeah, pine and oak are easy to get up here. Walnut, not so much.
But I hope that helped anybody that had no clue to begin with. And there again, it's not, really by the book, but it worked for me. But if anybody has any questions, I'll either answer.
Yeah, JP wanted to know what kind of lathe that was.
That was the large Harbor Freight on a stand. They actually call that something on a stand. I can't give you the exact model number because that would be too organized.
Chris wants to know, Charles, do you know what you're doing?
Chris who?
Not me. I already know you don't know what you're doing.
Okay, Mr. Cute. No, I have a general idea of what I'm doing, and I know Chris, he's a great guy. I don't feel confident enough to outright teach because I'm still learning myself. And that's an example of a live edge that has a shape to it, other than just a bowl. And
I tell you what, I'd rather learn by watching somebody else make a mistake than me doing it.
Yeah, that part.
You keep saying you don't know what you're doing, but everything you've done looks damn good.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Well, I appreciate it. I guess when I say I don't know what I'm doing, I'm saying I don't feel confident enough to outright teach what I do because I think I'm guessing as I go, and it sometimes works for me, sometimes doesn't. And maybe that's lack of confidence. I don't know. At scroll sawing, I feel like I can teach.
No.
Anybody that takes classes, like you can ask Braxton, that takes classes to learn how to do some of this. Even though you take the classes, once you branch off, you still create your own technique. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I'm being too humble, but there again, I know I did things that might have made traditional lathe turners or veteran lathe turners laugh or cringe. But I feel like I'm decent at what I do, but I have a ways to go in my opinion. But thank you for the love, Chris. Cute.
So I think that's the beauty of shows like this and the YouTube videos. We're seeing our compatriots that are equals out there, trying, learning along the way.
Yeah.
And and making mistakes. You're having it depart the machine and go airborne and hit you in the head.
Yeah. And I am. Anybody that knows me knows I won't hide my mistakes because God knows I'm not perfect. That may shock one person in this world. But I am not one of these people that, and not that there's a lot of them, but I'm not too proud to admit or show my mistakes because that's how people learn. And my dad will tell you I learned things the hard way, but by God, you don't forget.
I think that's a lot of us out there, Charles, not just you.
Alrighty. Well, I hope somebody learned something, at least, they had never seen it done before. I hope it helped a little bit.
Good job, Charles. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Any more questions out there for Charles?
Family-friendly ones. I'll answer anything, even if it doesn't have to do with bowls, by God.
Oh, Charles, what chuck do you use on that machine on your lathe?
It's a grizzly chuck. It's a, oh God, I want to say 1 inch by eight teeth per inch.
8 TPI? All right.
Yeah, it is a grizzly chuck. I just can't remember the exact model number, but I believe it's 8 TPI.
I just have to pull the trigger and buy a chuck. I'm one of those guys. I have a heartburn with pain more for the chuck than I did for the machine.
Yeah, that sucks. That's why when people ask, people ask you how much it costs to make a pen, you tell them over $1,000 because between the lathe and all the crap you got to buy to turn pens. Yeah.
I bought a pen $75. Yeah. I got to sell 12 and pay for the machine.
Lathe you have, even though it's from Harbor Freight, is almost identical to an
Grizzly.
older Jet or a Grizzly. Yes.
Yeah.
They will, the parts from the Jet. That's just like my Harbor Freight bandsaw. It's identical to the older Jet and Grizzly bandsaws. I can order parts from Grizzly or Jet, and they will fit my bandsaw.
Yeah, more and more people here lately. I don't want to name names because they don't want to give credit to a sponsor that's not sponsoring them, or so they're not a sponsor. But anyway, few people out there have been getting grizzly lathes here lately, and I've seen a lot of teaching videos where they're using the big beige colored one, like a mustard color. I think it's a Powermatic. I could be wrong, but they're big honking, big honking lathes, man. Woo.
There was an article I found on the web once. It compared the stand-up Harbor Freight that Charles got there to the Jet. I mean, the shapes were identical.
Yeah.
And I was trying to send it to a friend of mine. I sent the link to it because the link is dead. The article's gone. Somebody got involved and got that article pulled down. Because he had all the pictures, because he had both machines. And he had them side by side. And the shapes of every piece were identical. Which means they're being founded in the same freaking factory in China.
And Chris Keat is asking if I'm using Tommy G tools or traditional ones or a mixture of both. And Chris, I only use Tommy G's tools. I've fallen in love with Carbide tools, not Tommy G. Tommy G is a good friend, but I love Carbide tools, and I don't have the confidence to use traditional tools. But to answer that, Tommy G is actually my only official sponsor. In my last video, I mentioned another sponsor. But
Which technically, he's going by TG Tools, isn't he, for his tools?
If he's changed names, I was not aware of that. But I know his website, it at least was TommyGWorkshop.com.
Oh, yeah, but I mean,
and
technically, when he engraves his tools, it's TG Tools.
Oh, okay. Mark Stallings, being Mark Stallings, asked if they're spiral blade tools. No, they're not.
Okay, so next, Charles, let me get going.
Sorry.
Next week, I'm not going to be able to host the show. Shannon, he's going to host it next week, and and I'm going to go over to my in-laws' house. I'll be attending the show, but I'll have Shannon host it. That's if it's still good with you, Shannon. I thought I asked you.
Well, you said in the future. I didn't realize it was going to be next week.
Yeah.
I have to make sure I get my watch set to Guinea time because
Sorry.
The future's nice and vague. Next week is kind of concrete.
Can Charles back you up?
No, we'll give it a shot.
Okay. I got so much going on in my head I can't keep track. But anyway, I'm going to the in-laws' house, and so far her internet's better, so I'll see if I can attend. But if not, I'll get with you, Shannon, or Charles, and I'll get you through the ropes on how to start the show. Okay, and I don't know what you guys want to talk about or do next week.
Mouse will be here if I'm not sleeping.
Any of you guys that watch this show, is there something that you'd like to be shown how to do, or just want to see something? Let us know. And
that's what I can think of.
How to win in your birdhouse challenge.
and talking about that, September's when I'm going to start both the contests.
Oh, and sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to give everybody a month to start. Not a month to start, but a month to do their projects. But I'm going to be running the 2x4 and the birdhouse challenge all September long.
Dude, I'm not very good at multitasking. You're killing me.
Jamie Page, JP Woodwork says highlight YouTubers with small amount of subs.
There you go.
Okay, we could do that. I was thinking of doing something like that anyway, but yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, I was going to do that anyway, but thanks for bringing it up.
Shut up. Unless anybody else has got any other ideas, but that seems like a good one.
Well, I'm just reading the comments. I don't know if it's considered copying, but he did mention that Russ has done it.
Chris Cute goes, I'd like to see Russ, Charles, and Shannon do a fastest shave-off challenge.
Mine would
he goes,
take
LOL, I'd pay money for that.
I'd win that one. I don't have as much to shave off.
Wait. What's he want us to shave? This is Chris.
He is a sick puppy. That's true.
I'm just saying, look at the hat he wears. You never know guys like that.
Hey, I know the hat he's wearing. I own numerous ones myself.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, I used to go. There's your outside voice talking.
I'm almost sorry. Dang.
That is a highly respected sports organization.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah, not from my point of view.
Oh, you guys worship college ball. They're still in college. They can't make the pros.
Oh.
Basket weaving can only take you so far in college.
Yeah.
But anywho,
Was that my outside voice?
anywho, guys, that's all we got for this week.
Brian.
If you got any ideas of what you'd like to see, leave them in the comment section. And I think next week it's totally up to Shannon or Charles, what they want to host. But I think that's a good idea to highlight some YouTubers. We haven't done that in a while. Anyway, also, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, I'm going to be moving the show over to Saturdays, and that would be 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And that's all I got to say. Because Fridays haven't worked and Sundays aren't working, so that's all I got to say.
Well, it's the times, man.
Yeah.
Not the days, it's the times.
Yeah.